Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on NTCC. My name is Priyanka, and I've been working with Naga Systems for past 3 years as a consultant. I'll be guiding you through the session today, together with my colleague Codebeamer, who is supporting me at the back end. So here's our agenda for today. First, we will start with a quick introduction to NTCC and what it offers. Next, we will look at its key features and functionalities. We will then cover the possible synchronization options available. After that, we will walk through some typical use cases together with live demonstration. We will also introduce Naga Systems in short, and finally, we will wrap up with a Q&A session. So throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature to post it, and we will try to address most of them at the end. But for any questions which can't be answered today, we will definitely follow up with you in the next couple of days. So let's get started. So what is NTCC? NTCC, or Naga Targetprocess Codebeamer Connector, is an advanced solution developed by Naga Systems that helps synchronize data between two powerful tools. So first, we have PTC Codebeamer, a robust platform for managing entire software development lifecycle. And then there is IBM's Targetprocess, a top-tier agile planning solution designed specifically for the enterprises. NTCC acts as a bridge, allowing data to flow smoothly between these two tools. Or simply put, it eliminates the need for manual data syncing between the two platforms. All right, let's talk a bit about what we actually offer. So it improves the transparency and collaboration by syncing Codebeamer and Targetprocess in real time. So no matter which tool you're using, you're always working with the same up-to-date data, and all the necessary information is visible. One of the standout features of this connector is its flexibility. So you can configure it to sync data in one direction or both ways, or depending on what best works for the team. Plus, it's fully customizable. You can decide exactly what you want to sync, and it's flexible enough to handle any differences in the tools like different field types or data models, etc. And the best part, the whole thing runs automatically in the background. So the creation, updation, and deletion of entities and tracker elements happens in real time while you're working with zero manual effort required. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the key functionalities of the connector. Instead of using a scheduled-based approach, the connector uses a trigger-based approach. So this means that whenever there is an update in either Codebeamer or Targetprocess, the connector picks the information and performs the update in other tool in real time. You can also define your own conditions to control when an element should be synced and when it shouldn't be. For example, let's say you want to sync a Codebeamer tracker with Targetprocess only when it reaches certain state. So then we can set up a condition like if the tracker is still in some initial state, like draft state, for example, it won't be synced, but when it progresses to a later state, it will sync automatically. These are called predicates, and let's quickly jump to the tool itself to see how this can be configured. So I'm logged into one of the demo instances of NTCC, and here on the left-hand navigation menu, you can see various options available. And sync section allows you to keep track of which Targetprocess project and type are synced with which Codebeamer project and tracker. You can also create a new sync config by clicking on this plus icon here and entering the necessary details. So now if I select a specific sync and click on this icon or the View Sync Config button, you will be provided with more detailed information about the configuration. And under predicates is where you can set up these conditions that trigger the sync. So you can set up a Targetprocess predicate as well as a Codebeamer predicate. So you simply need to select the field and add the condition here. And if this is set up, the connector first checks this before proceeding, but this is completely optional. Now let's talk about rich text conversion. So since Targetprocess uses HTML and Codebeamer uses Wiki, rich text conversion becomes necessary in order to display the synchronization data correctly. So NECC handles this automatically in the background, converting rich text from Wiki to HTML and vice versa. So everything looks right in both tools. And if you're wondering where this could be configured, navigate to the mapping section. And here we'll find that various fields mapped, and description is one such field which may need a rich text conversion. So to enable this, simply click on Edit and select the type Rich Text Conversion from the dropdown. Now, if you need more detailed control, then that's where regex-based mapping helps. So this helps you to fine-tune your synchronization rules and content. For example, let's say like Codebeamer has several states that represent different assessment steps like financial assessment, management assessment, or technical assessment, but target process has only single assessment state. Then you can use regex-based mapping to map each Codebeamer assessment states to single target process assessment state. So basically, there is no need to map each state individually. And similar to rich text conversion, you can enable this by selecting regex from the dropdown and entering the key value pair that you want to map. Regex also lets you modify the sync data if needed. For example, let's say there's certain URLs being synced, then you can configure it to automatically detect a specific URL and replace it with something else. So here are some more key features of the tool. Suppose if a synchronization fails, then the connector automatically logs the error and tries again. You can also manually trigger a resync from the connector's interface, where you can view and filter the errors by system, by specific sync, or by specific item. For example, let's say like if one of the tools become temporarily unavailable, then the connector will automatically resolve the synchronization as soon as the tool is back online. But if the error is due to a misconfiguration, then you can quickly fix the issue and manually trigger a resync. And once the sync is successful, the error will be removed from this list. A common example is like when a field is mandatory in the target tool, but it isn't filled in the source tool before synchronization. So in such cases, you can update the source tool to populate that field value and prevent future synchronization issues. As mentioned before, NTCC supports all entity types and tracker types, fully aligning with your data model. So whether it be native fields, custom fields, or relationship fields, everything in Codebeamer or target process can be synced. The connector also supports creation, updation, and deletion of entities and tracker elements. So you have full control of what is allowed. For example, you may choose to prevent deletions altogether, or perhaps you want certain items to be created in one direction while allowing updates in the other direction. Now let's talk about different synchronization scenarios available within NTCC. So first, we have fully bidirectional sync, which means that both target process and Codebeamer stays in sync with each other, allowing either side to update the information. And this is the most flexible option available. And then there is master-slave approach, in which one tool acts as a master and synchronization happens only in one direction. For example, if target process is the master, then the data would sync from target process to Codebeamer, but not the other way around. Finally, there is a hybrid scenario in which you can set up master-slave approach on overall system level, but also configure certain fields or entities to sync back in the opposite direction. So if target process is the master, then most of the data would sync from target process to Codebeamer, but you can also set up certain fields or entities to sync from Codebeamer to target process. So NTCC supports syncing any entity type with any tracker type, so which means it can handle a wide range of complex use cases. Now let's talk about some of these typical use cases. So in this diagram, you see a work item hierarchy, which includes portfolio epics, capabilities, features, and user stories, both in target process and Codebeamer. Portfolio epics are typically managed in target process due to its greater portfolio management capabilities. As a result, NTCC is configured to sync portfolio epics from target process to Codebeamer. However, this is not mandatory. If preferred, connector can be configured to use Codebeamer for portfolio epics and portfolio management instead. Capabilities, features, and user stories, on the other hand, are synced bidirectionally. So at this level, work can be done in either target process or Codebeamer, or the goal is to keep data up to date in both. So whether you are working in target process or Codebeamer, the information remains consistent. Now let's quickly go through a live demo so you can see how everything works. So first I will show you how the mapping is done for type feature in NTCC. You can always create a new mapping by clicking on this plus icon and entering the target process and Codebeamer fields and the direction that you want to sync. So this gives you baseline understanding of how systems are linked. So let's take an example of start date field. So here it's configured to sync bidirectionally, that is from target process to Codebeamer, as well as from Codebeamer to target process. So now if I go to target process, I have a feature roadmap view displaying various features for this particular portfolio. So if I take feature B as an example, you can see that there is a Codebeamer ID and direct link to Codebeamer item, as this item was already synced once. So what I want to show you is like, if I change the start date for this feature in Codebeamer, how is this going to get updated in the roadmap view? For this, let me quickly open a multi-window. Okay. And let me move this date to a later date. Or before that, let me also move this a bit. Yeah. To July 1st. So you notice that the feature is moved in the roadmap view immediately. So this is one example of real-time synchronization. Let's also see the synchronization of relationships, particularly across the hierarchy levels. So here I have a list view which shows 3 levels of hierarchy. So we have epics at the top, features, and then user stories. So if I open this user story in Codebeamer, I can show you how the existing relationship between a feature and a user story is. So there's a field called feature reference, which shows the connection of this user story to the feature. So at the moment, it's feature A for the demo user story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this demo user story from feature A to feature B in target process. So now switching back to Codebeamer, you will notice that this relationship has been updated to reflect the new feature. So coming back to the slides. Now, if we go one step further and consider what we need to do with the work items that we saw in previous diagram, we need to plan them into team iterations and into program increments. So we start by planning in target process, which includes program increments, team iterations, and epics. From there, epics can be broken down into features and user stories. And that can happen in either Codebeamer or target process, depending on what best works for the team. PI planning itself usually happens in target process. And once planning is done, team moves into execution mode and starts working through the user stories in Codebeamer, for example. And as they update the progress there, all changes are automatically synced back to target process. So everything stays aligned and easy to track. An example of this would be like if a user story is closed in Codebeamer, then the status is automatically synced back to target process. And suppose if you're using a report or dashboard to visualize the summary of closed use stories for a feature in an epic, then this report is also updated immediately as the status changes. Finally, let's see how this supports PI planning. So I have team PI planning board view in target process, which is a visual representation that shows that helps team organize their work in program increments. So it shows user stories assigned to specific team iterations. So as you see, like some of the user stories are not planned into any team iteration, while some of them are already. So suppose if the team wants to move a user story from one team iteration to another. So this could be because of a shifting priority or dependency issues or for some other reasons. So let's see how that's going to reflect in Codebeamer. So before I move a user story, let me show you how this release tracker or the team sprint looks in Codebeamer. So in Codebeamer, there's a tab called Downstream Reference, which shows all the connected user stories to this team iteration. So at the moment, there is just demo user story. So as you see in this view. So now let me also move the user story B to team sprint 2. And now if I switch back to Codebeamer and do a refresh, you can see that this new user story also appears under the right release tracker in Codebeamer. So another typical use case is the connection of requirements management with agile development. So looking at where these work items come from, the underlying requirements are managed in Codebeamer and connected to the user stories and features. So when we talk about requirements, Codebeamer is the master, and hence it doesn't make sense to sync these back to Targetprocess. Rather, to use web links such that if the Codebeamer user story or feature is connected to a requirement, we synchronize the link with the corresponding element in Targetprocess. So those were just few practical examples of real-time synchronization between Targetprocess and Codebeamer, thereby reducing manual errors, preventing misalignments, and improving visibility across the teams. So with that, we come to the end of the technical part. So before jumping into Q&A, let me quickly introduce who we are and what we do. So Naga Systems was founded in 2014, and now we are a team of over 60 plus employees and 350 plus customers. Our headquarters is based in Stuttgart, Germany, but we've also grown internationally with offices in the UK, Austria, Japan, Ukraine, where our development team is based, and most recently in the Nordics region.